Hello, I'm Berl Schwartz from City Pulse, and we're back for our monthly check-in with the mayor of Lansing, Andy Schor.
Hey, Berl.
Good to see you. Before we talk about more weighty topics, I was in Rio Town the other day for lunch and watched a couple of guys come out of the diner wearing ties and hop on scooters and go downtown, back to work, presumably.
Yep.
It's a phenomenon.
We're seeing that everywhere. The two scooters we have, Lime and Bird, they're very popular. A lot of people are using them. We have been working with both scooter companies. We signed an agreement with Lime last week, and I want the tool, I want the mobility device, the option to get all around the city. But you don't want people on the sidewalks going 15 miles an hour where they could hurt someone. And when they get parked, they have to be parked in the right-of-way area. We treat them like bicycles. People who are confused about these things, they ask. We treat them like bicycles or skateboards. You can't bike on the sidewalks. You're supposed to bike on the street on the right side.
Okay to be in the bike lane?
You can be in a bike lane. You can be in a bike lane on the street, but you cannot use them on the river trail. You cannot use them on sidewalks. So it's the same place where bikes are prohibited. So they're treated as bikes. But they've been a great tool, to be honest with you. It's a mobility issue. Somebody who lives in Lansing can get downtown and get to other places using one of these if they want to. Somebody who doesn't live in Lansing, who comes and parks their car in a garage and doesn't want to get in their car to drive to Old Town or Rio Town or down Michigan Avenue, they can hop on one of these scooters. Chelsea and my staff and I yesterday, we had an hour for lunch, so we hopped the Grab and Go, which is CATA's free shuttle that goes from downtown to Old Town and Old Town to downtown. So we hopped on that. We came up to Old Town and we had lunch over at Creole. And it was delicious. And then we took the Grab and Go back, and people were like, "Why don't you use the scooters?" And we said, "Oh, maybe next time we'll use the scooters." I don't know. Maybe we'll use the scooters.
We want to get a picture.
Oh, we can get a picture.
That constitute an endorsement.
I don't know if it would. It depends on the scooter. But we have an agreement with Lime. We expect to have an agreement with Bird in the next few days. Same agreement. But they're allowed right now under our ordinance. People keep calling and saying, "You should impound them. You should impound them." We're not going to impound them. They're allowed under our ordinance. That's why we're signing agreements to make sure that they don't go more than 15 miles an hour, to make sure they're not going on sidewalks, things like that. And the companies have been really good about it. They're going to pay us right-of-way fee and things like that. And in the meantime, the agreement is for 60 days. And in the meantime, City Council is working on an ordinance. So we're working with Councilman Spatafor, who's the chair of the Public Service Committee, as they work on an ordinance. So honestly, I think it's been great. It's kind of the Wild West. They just kind of showed up. Bird just dropped a bunch.
Right.
And it caught everybody by surprise. We worked with Lime for an agreement before they put theirs down. Now we're working with Bird. But I think it's a great mobility tool. I think, again, Councilman Spatafor told me that he hopped on one of these from the downtown, took it out to Arcadia. Arcadia is now open on the east side. They had dinner at Arcadia, and then they scootered back. I think it's a great option. When I was in Old Town yesterday, we saw the same thing. We saw 4 guys in suits and ties come out of Clark Hill. I don't know if they're coming from Clark Hill or if they're coming off of the river trail, which they're not supposed to. But they came out of Clark Hill, down the street, right to meet, stopped and had lunch, and then scootered back.
It's exciting. And I live downtown, and one of the things I've seen many times is the people riding the Lime ones around at night because they have lights on them, and that's cool.
Yep, you can do it. Again, that's legal. We want to make sure safety. You want to make sure they're in the road. Motorists have to take the same precautions that they would for bicycles. You're supposed to give a 3-foot berth away from the scooter, just like you do for a bicycle. So I think it's a really cool tool that people can use. For us, we've got several commercial areas. We've got our downtown area. We've got Old Town. We've got Rio Town. We've got kind of the Michigan Avenue corridor. We've got several different commercial corridors. And sometimes people get tired of eating lunch at the same places, and you want a diversity of places. So this is just an easy way for them to get there. So I'm excited for this as a new mobility tool.
The other issue that we used to think it was the Wild West here in Lansing was dispensaries, and we did a cover story recently that said licensed dispensaries, Ann Arbor 24, Lansing 0.
Right.
We're now facing a real possibility of all the remaining 9 out of what might have been 80 at one time. They're going to have to close on October 31st.
Yeah.
I know you have said you got to be careful about opening up this ordinance because it could go either way, but doesn't something have to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Where we're at right now, we are navigating the ordinance. You know, Clerk Swope can't issue the licenses until all of the appeals for those who are denied are done. The courts have said that. I don't know if that was expected when the ordinance was passed or not. I wasn't mayor at the time, but we need to get through that process. So we expect, you know, by the end of the year, we will issue hour 20. Clerk Swope will issue hour 20, and then open it up for the next 5.
So meanwhile, we may have nothing open for a month or 2.
The state keeps changing the deadline is the problem. The state made a deadline, and then the court said December 15th, and we think we can make it by December 15th. Then the state issued new emergency rules for October 31st. You know, we're working on the end of the year deadline, so we're not going to change anything we're doing before the end of the year. Now, the dispensary owners, you know, they have to worry about state police coming in on November 1st if they don't get approval by October 31st, and that is a concern.
So the city's not going to take any action
We are
against
not.
them.
We are planning to continue the approval process, issue the approvals, and anybody who is still open that has not received an approval, we will take action against them. But under the former mayor's executive order, which I have continued and honored, anybody who applied for a license that is still within the process that has not been denied, we are allowing to stay open.
Are you talking to the state about, you know, we got a problem here?
I sent a letter to the governor, and I think you reported on it. We sent a letter to the governor when
But since then?
I got a response from Laura. We have indicated that we are going through our process for approvals, and we need a little bit more time. The state is not talking to us about it. The state has said that, you know, they know that there are many different communities that have many different rules, but they're gonna pass their rules pretty much on their own. So not really. I mean, we have. Like I said, I have communicated to the governor's office, to Laura, our position, and it hasn't changed. So
Let me ask you
it's
this.
it's frustrating. It is. It is that they keep moving the target. I don't know why they wouldn't just stick with it.
Is that really the biggest reason that we don't have licensed dispensaries, that they keep moving the target? Is it?
It's that and our ordinance. It's both. I mean, our ordinance says that somebody, if you have an application and you get denied today, you know, you have a certain number. You have, in essence, you have 30 days to file an appeal. And if you wait all 30 days before filing an appeal, then we have to schedule an appeal with our marijuana commission, all under the ordinance. The marijuana commission is 8 volunteers who were meeting monthly. Now they're going to meet like every day for a week for 6 hours at a time to try and get these all taken care of. But there is a timeline that we have to meet. Again, we're following the ordinance that was passed. I wasn't there when they passed it, and all indications from our city council partners are that they are not interested in reopening the ordinance. The commission has sent 4 recommendations to council, and I have not heard. I would be fine, you know, reopening the ordinance to look at how we can solve the problem now. But realistically, how we're going to do it moving forward, we should look at that. But we should do that after we have finished this process, figure out what went right, what went wrong, and then make any changes. But as we've talked about, that could go backwards. I don't know. It's a conversation we have to have, and if this gets worse and I have to veto it, then we're in the exact same place. So there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
Has the clerk's office, in your estimation, moved as quickly as it could, even under this ordinance?
I think so. I mean, I think so. There was a scoring requirement in the ordinance. They didn't have the staffing for that. They had to send that out to be scored. They had to hire more staffing that we budgeted for in the budget as of June. I think that they are moving as fast as they can to try and get these evaluated, scored, denied. You know, first and it's not just the clerk's office. First, there were issues of occupancy and things like that. When we came in, we said, okay, we can navigate that. We can give people, temporary occupancy permits that can move them through the process. So we tried to speed that up a bit. But I think that they have moved as fast as they can under the rules that they have been given through the ordinance. And again, should we evaluate that moving forward to see what we can do to make things move faster? I think we should, but it'll be a legislative discussion that I think will happen once we get through this process.
But the indication you have is the council is not interested in?
I have not had direct conversations with them, but I don't know that they are interested in reopening the ordinance. It's a conversation you'd have to have with the council members.
But Your Honor, you're the mayor, and you lead the way, and this is a strong mayor's city. Why aren't you having conversations saying, this is broken, we got to fix this?
We have conversations a lot.
On this ordinance?
Well, the recommendations from the commission just came out days ago.
Yes, and the clerk's office failed to get them to city council in a timely manner.
That I don't.
Well, they've admitted that. They dropped the ball.
Okay. The commission issued the recommendations. I saw the email from the clerk that went to the council and myself maybe a week ago. This is a document that's recommendations. That went to all of council and it went to myself. So council members have seen that. This isn't a matter of getting it to council for introduction and to committee to consider. These are recommendations from these 8 people that can be considered at any time. When I meet with council in our brown bag meetings, I will talk to them about this. But again,
I guess I'm surprised that given this problem that has been obvious for many months, that you haven't initiated this discussion already.
I can initiate, again, I think we have right now 4 members of council that are not interested in making changes and increasing the number. One of the recommendations from the commission was if there are ties to allow for an increase in the number to accommodate the ties. I think the council is split right now. It is a conversation we will have, but I am interested in getting through the process that we have. I am interested in seeing this to the end with the ordinance and then figuring out what all the issues are and proposing changes. Will they pass? I don't know. I don't know because we haven't gotten to the end. We just saw these recommendations. Again, we didn't know about some of these scoring problems. We have some that my understanding is they are very close in scoring. So we don't know what all the issues are until we get to the end. And when we get to the end, we have these recommendations from our commission. We'll take a look and see what we think the problems are, and I will talk to our city council about changes. But I do not tell them, you will change this. You will change this law. And having been a state legislator, had the governor, when I was a legislator, said to us, you will change this law, sometimes we'd say okay, and sometimes we'd say no. That's the legislative process.
No, I wasn't suggesting you order.
Yeah, but no, we will. I have conversations with all 8 of them, and I think there are some that are very interested in changing the ordinance, and there are some that are not interested whatsoever in changing the ordinance, and there are some that would get rid of the ordinance. So I have had conversations with them for 8 months about this and many, many other issues. We talk about a lot of things, but for this one, the process has to play out, and we can see what I would recommend as comprehensive changes, and then we'll see.
All right. Another issue that's apparently moving in the right direction is the Lansing Housing Commission.
Yes.
Tell us what the city found and what efforts are being made to solve the problems.
Well, we had a press conference maybe a week ago. We finished the inspections. The inspections are nothing new. The inspections that we saw in the last 3 complexes were the issues were the same as the first 2. And what we announced was that the first 2 are fixed and are up to code. Leroy Fro, which is where the fire was, and South Washington are now fixed and up to code. They had to replace 50 or 60 boilers, and it's everything from boilers to permits that weren't pulled when improvements were made to door locks and things like that. So those 2 facilities are now up to code. The other 3, the inspections are finished and will be up to code by the end of October. The Doug Fleming, who's the new Housing Commission interim director, said that they're going to be doing biannual inspections within each of the properties. So they'll be getting inspected twice a year internally. So that's even more than the city is. They have taken a lot of steps to fixing the problems that we saw where the Housing Commission properties with us as landlord were not up to code. They will be up to code by the end of October. They will continue to review and keep them up to code. Doug gave out a lot of numbers at the press conference that I can't remember offhand. I expect that he's going to go to City Council and report to them because they're the ones who had the vote of no confidence a few months ago. We have 2 new members of the Housing Commission who are very involved. So we have seen changes on the commission. We are seeing that the inspections are completed. We are seeing that the fixes are done for those that we had finished inspections previously, and all the fixes will be done. We believe by the end of October. The only exclusion to that is where the fire was, because that is being held for investigation and things. But everything else will be up to code. We have other issues that we want to make sure. We want to create programming and things like that to make sure that folks can get their GED, to make sure that there's opioid crisis information. We want to make sure folks are getting appropriate information, but the first and foremost priority was that they are living in properties that are up to city code, and that will be done by the end of October, or at least that's what the interim director said, and that's when we are expecting to see them come back to us and prove that they're up to code. We will do a reinspection to make sure, and so yeah, I think this is going in the positive direction. It's funny because when there's a crisis, everybody reports it. When we announce that we have fixed the problem, nobody really reports it, which is fine. For me, it's just a matter of getting them up to code and having people live in those properties where things are fixed and that we know they're safe. And I think we're there.
We will report it.
I appreciate that.
Let's turn to development.
Sure.
We'll start downtown, and so we have the city market, and you put out a request for information.
Correct.
And you got nothing back.
We've gotten no specific proposals yet. It was open-ended. We didn't want to put a specific deadline because we're still navigating with the waterfront, so the property is not available yet. But we have not received any official I'd say proposals, but any information packets or documents from anyone yet. We've had 2 people indicate that they plan to submit something, and so we're waiting for that. But we really haven't been that aggressive because we're still in the courts with the waterfront, and we'll see what happens there. When that comes to an end, then we will push the people who have indicated that they have specific proposals for us. We'll push them to turn them in. We can put something back out with a specific RFP if we need to, with a more formalized request for proposals. My intent is to have someone in the city market as soon as possible, but I'm not going to finalize anything with anyone until the court process is over with the waterfront. So we will continue down that path. It is an important piece, but there's a whole lot more going on in the Stadium District that is really exciting. So it's an important piece of the Stadium District, but it's just one piece. We're about to bring in a professional soccer team, which is going to start playing in the spring. We have the Meyer and Hotel project, which is moving along. We're pushing the state to put skin in the game, just like the city has. We have worked with the developers for cleanup. The property is massively contaminated, so we will put brownfield resources in, and we want the state to put in community revitalization resources in that area. So there's a lot going on. We continue to work on the idea of a performing arts center, and we're not there yet, but we think that can happen in the next few months, or we're hopeful. So there's a lot going on in that area. And you keep going down the street, and we're about to have Tannen in where the old Tabbouleh was on Michigan Avenue. You've got Arcadia. That stretch is
We've got Scott Gillespie's new project.
Yep, we have. Yeah, that's a good point. The venue building, and then the other piece he's putting up. We have a lot going on in that area, in the east side and the Stadium District, and into the downtown. And that's good news. That's good news for Lansing.
Well, let's go back to downtown.
Yeah.
You skipped over City Hall, and
I did.
Of course that's one of the biggest question marks.
Yep.
Where are things?
Yeah, we're still working on court consolidation. That's the first piece. I don't know what's going to happen.
And explain to our viewers that the issue there is you need to find a place for the courts and the lockup in order to move out of City Hall.
Yes, if we move out of City Hall, we need to figure out what we're going to do with the courts, what we're going to do with the lockup. The idea has been raised for us to consolidate the district court. We have a district court in Lansing, which is 54A. There's a district court in East Lansing, which is 54B, and there's a district court in Mason, which is 55. We are one of 6 counties that does not have a consolidated district court. So we thought if we're going to be moving and we're going to be moving courts, this is a good opportunity to consolidate those courts. It would save Lansing a lot of money. We wouldn't have to fund the courts any longer. If we can do a lockup, that is, if we can get out of the lockup business and have a county jail that is closer to Lansing, you know, I'm not supportive of putting a county jail in the downtown. I know that proposal has happened in the past, but if we can put one.
Why are you not?
I just don't think that a jail makes sense in a downtown area. A countywide jail makes sense in a downtown area. It discourages business. But there are proposals to do it, you know, on our southern border, down at that Jolly Collins area. So we're navigating that. If we can put the county, if the county is willing to put their jail at our southern border, then we don't have to have a lockup. We can do fresh arrests and others in the jail on the southern border. You know, our police station is on our southern border right now, so we can do the same thing with the jail. We would save significant dollars for Lansing that we can use for legacy costs, that we can use for other things. So we are navigating that process.
Is there any thought of building a new city hall that could contain all of them? You've got Sam Ide's properties in the core of downtown.
It has come up. Yep. We're putting together an options list to see what's the cost and what can we do. So it is it has absolutely come up. What you're talking about is the 7 block. It's Kalamazoo and MLK.
Right.
It's come up. You know, we feel we need a new police station.
Well, that's one location. I don't. There's the other one where the old Civic Center was.
You're talking about the Con Hall parking lot, the Constitution Hall parking lot. That is an option, and there's a few pieces in that area. You know, the Lansing School District has an old junior high school behind their administration building, which, you know, would be a great piece to be able to redevelop in our downtown.
I'm sorry, which is that?
There's a junior high school that's attached to the old the Lansing administration, Lansing Schools administration. I cannot remember the name of the junior high school. Yeah. West High. I forgot the name. Sure. But there's a building back there that I believe that the school district is selling, which has been vacant for years. So, you know, that is an option.
So is building a real option?
It's possible. It's possible. I don't know. You know, we're going to put all the options on the table and see what the cost is.
That's the first I've heard of.
It's again, we're looking at everything. You know, we have the LSJ building, which was proposed last year. We have 3 other developers with proposals for a new city hall. We have looked at the 7 block. If we want to bring in a police station along with the city hall, well, that's a bigger footprint.
But you mentioned the 3 other developers, but you haven't mentioned the one that Mayor Bernero
the State Journal one. Yeah, I did. I said that first.
Well, okay. As far as what to do with City Hall, though, is Beitler still the goal?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. In terms of where new City Hall is, we have many different options. In terms of what to do with the old building, Beitler is still the proposal. Now, you had an article and
he set a deadline.
He said he has not talked to me about a deadline. He has talked to you and your reporters about a deadline. He has not talked to me about a deadline. We will have that conversation. And in the beginning of the year, he and I talked, and I told him we were putting it on hold so we can figure out the courts. I think we're going to know, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a better idea. If the court consolidation isn't going to happen, then we will look at putting City Hall somewhere new and including the district court. I would like to figure out what's going to happen with the lockup. And again, if the county jail is not going to be close enough for us to use, then we'll have to put a new lockup in with whatever the new City Hall proposal is. That increases the cost. You know, there's only a certain amount of money that we can get from selling old City Hall to Beitler. Mm-hmm. And we have to make the numbers work. And I know he doesn't care about that. Let me backtrack on that. When we talked on the phone, he said he understood that we had costs, that we had to figure out procedures. In your article, he basically said Lansing needs this more than he needs Lansing, so we should do this now.
Yeah, how did you take that?
Not well. I do not agree with that. He has got his opinion, but I do not agree with that. We have tremendous development opportunities right now in the city of Lansing. We very much like his proposal, and we very much want that to happen. But the taxpayers are not going to be on the hook for millions of dollars more just because we rushed to get that done. I know there are many others who would love to have an opportunity to do something with our old city hall. I loved what Beitler came up with. I loved the hotel. I loved that, the retaining the plaza. I loved what he came up with. But because I loved it, and because you loved it, and because Mayor Bonero loved it, doesn't mean that we should spend millions and millions and millions of dollars more.
Well, how do you know how many millions it is?
Well, we know that his proposal said that for building a new city hall is up to $40 million. That does not include anything we'd have to spend on a police station. That does not include, we don't make $40 million from the sale of the old city hall.
You do not?
No. So we have to figure that out. He didn't ask for any incentives, which is good. We would, in essence, have to create our own incentive. We could do a brownfield district where we would capture tax increment to pay for a new city hall. But I don't know if the numbers match up yet. And we have to have that discussion. But again, if we want to add a police station to the mix, well, that increases the amount, so we have to navigate that with the numbers. If we want to look at other properties for a new city hall that's not the State Journal building, we have to see what's the cost. If we go to the 7 block, we have to pay for that property, but it's a new build, so it's not a rehab. But is a new build more expensive than a rehab? We have to put all those numbers on the table, but before we can do that, we have to know, is there going to be a court involved? Is there going to be a lockup involved? Because including a court with 6 courtrooms for 6 judges and including a lockup, that increases the cost significantly. So we have to know that.
This court consolidation thing, of course, is complicated because it involves the county, it involves East Lansing.
Correct.
And what are you hearing from the other parties?
Sure. East Lansing seems to be supportive. Their mayor and council members seem to be supportive. The county is supportive. Again, they will have increased costs. So they want to know how much their increased cost is going to be. We have to figure out location. If Lansing and East Lansing are combining our courts into one consolidated building, we have to figure out where it's going to be. Again, is it going to be down by the Jolly Collins area? Is it going to be somewhere between Lansing and East Lansing? We have to figure out location. But people are generally supportive. Now we have a few judges that are not supportive, who have indicated that.
We have Judge Clark, who raised the issue of whether African Americans would get elected. What are your thoughts on that?
He and I would have a disagreement. We have had several African Americans get elected countywide. Lansing and East Lansing are still the population core of the county, and I think that Lansing and East Lansing and Meridian Township and even Delhi Township voters, I think they are all very willing to consider an African American person that is qualified. We've had several judges. I think you guys did a story about it. We've had several judges that are African American get elected. We've got two people running for district court right now, both who are African American, and I think that's great. Women. I think that we would not have problems electing. I think we would not have problems electing African American judges countywide. I think our recent history proves that. We have Shauna Dunnings, who's running unopposed. Now, he will
probate judge.
Right, for probate judge, running unopposed, African American woman, but the most qualified. Absolutely the most qualified. So he's raised a variety of issues, and we're going to see if our city council is supportive of a court consolidation, and if they are, we'll move forward, and if they're not, then we won't consolidate the courts. That doesn't mean that we can't have Lansing and East Lansing judges in one building and save some money, but we're going to navigate all of that. We just need to figure out if court consolidation is going to move forward, and if it's not, if we have to include the costs of courts when we build a new building and moving forward. If court consolidation happens, Lansing saves $1.8 million a year that we don't have to fund the courts. Now, that won't be a hard savings, because if we have to build a new building and other things and we have to put money towards that, it'll come off of our savings. But if we put $800,000 in and save $1 million a year, I'm okay with that.
How do you balance the immediate budgetary effects of perhaps doing the Beitler building that may end up costing more versus what's good for generations to come?
Mm-hmm. We would like to see, if there are proposals, we'd like to see them, in essence, paid for by the sale. There could be a cost to the taxpayers, and then we have to go out and talk to the taxpayers about that. And we have to see, are the taxpayers willing to pay a cost for a new city hall that may be better moving forward?
Let's talk as a comparison this soccer thing, and I want to talk about that as well. But that's an investment. Mm-hmm. You're betting that is going to improve economic development.
Absolutely.
Why not bet that the Beitler plan will improve economic development, because you'll have this really in a big city hotel in a prime location.
We will. That's factored into it. But again, with the soccer, there's a cost in the first 5 years. After that, it's a very minimal cost. But there's a first cost in the first 5 years that will be made up with the economic generation of 70,000 people coming downtown that wouldn't have otherwise. There is definitely an economic benefit to a hotel across the street from the Capitol, and people who are staying in hotels, in Delta Township and Lansing Township, coming to Lansing. There's definitely an economic benefit. But we have to pay directly, up to $40 million to build a new city hall. And going to the taxpayers and saying, we can make whatever it is. We can make $30 million from the sale of old City Hall, and have to pay $40 million for new City Hall. That's $10 million that we'd have to take, that we have to bond and take from our general fund away from existing services. That's a big number. The people have to want to have that money go into a new City Hall. It's really more, that's the question. It's not the question of the economic benefit of a hotel. There will be an economic benefit. And we've had several proposals for hotels, so we have to get it right. But there will be an economic benefit.
But these numbers, you say millions and millions and millions. You just said 10 million. I mean, is there any factual basis for this?
We've got studies for this. Sure. We know that if we sell the current property and it becomes a hotel, we know, in essence, what the sale price will be, how much we can use from that to capture in tax increment for a new. To pay for a new city hall. Those are numbers that have been out there since the Bernero administration. Again, the contract that was originally signed with Beitler but not approved by council said a new city hall will cost up to $40 million. And it had, in the proposal he gave us, it had all of the cost estimates. So yeah, those numbers are absolutely available. We know that if we kept City Hall where it is, it would be about $50 to $55 million. And again, we've got those studies. We know all of that. To renovate City Hall. We've got all those studies and numbers. Again, this is a matter of us having to, if we have to put taxpayer dollars in that are not going towards other services for the city, we have to explain that to the residents, and they have to buy into that. I think people would buy into a new hotel in the downtown, but we have to sell the idea of a new city hall and what it would cost. Again, that's why I want to see a police station. I want to see, we have other needs that we have to take care of, and if we can roll that all into one for efficiencies, that is my preference, but we have to make the numbers work. And all of these things we're talking about are things that we have to navigate, and if we have a deadline of the end of the year for Mr. Beitler and we don't make that, then we don't make that. I'm not going to let him put a deadline on us so that it'll cost the city.
Do you think his deadline's unreasonable?
I think his deadline is based on what he sees on his costs. So no, I think that for him it's not unreasonable. I think for us, we have to look at what we can do in terms of what makes the most sense for the city. He has to look at what makes the most sense for him in terms of costs to build. So I don't think it's unreasonable for him, but I think we have to do what's best for the City of Lansing taxpayers, not what's best for Paul Beitler to make this happen. So I think we'll be fine either way. I would like to have his project, and I'd like to have this all taken care of, but we're going to do our due diligence.
Yeah, the other part of this is preservation, and you support preservation.
I do.
We've got these 3 other plans, but none of them would save City Hall without putting a building in front of it. One of them would literally tear down City Hall. There is a preservation aspect here. Why not say, well, those 3 other plans, certainly we'll consider them, but what we really need, if we can't get Beitler, is we need a plan that is going to save that building.
But 2 of them did.
But
right, 2 of them did, one of them didn't.
Something blocking the view of it.
And that's
What's the point of saving a piece of art if you can't see it?
The plaza. There was this as well as I do. There was a building in the plaza before this city. While this City Hall was being built.
Right,
the old
while
City
it was being built.
Yeah, the plaza has been there. There are questions about that. Is the plaza a historical preservation piece that needs to be saved? I liked what Beitler did, but that being said, there could be other use for that plaza. I don't know.
Well, but Mike, that begs the question. The question is, are you dedicated to preserving not just the City Hall building, but being able to see that building?
I would like to retain the building and reuse it if possible. That's not to say it is possible. Am I committed to putting nothing in front of the building? No. I want to see all the proposals and see what comes in and see what.
So you're not really committed to preservation?
I am committed to preservation.
Yes,
I would like to see.
How are you committed to preservation if you would build something that would block what you're trying to preserve?
I don't know if we're going to build something that would block it. You're going to see it from.
But you're not. You're going to see it from. You're not drawing any hard line that says no. We're not going to block a building we think should be preserved.
I'm not drawing a hard line saying nothing should be in the plaza. The building that was there was half the size previously. There was a very nice, you've seen the pictures, there was a very nice building that was in front of it on the plaza.
Well, that was yesterday. What we have today is a building that the experts on mid-century architecture say is the most important example of this kind of architecture in our part of the state. And it sounds like you would say, well, but if we may build something that would block it.
We will look at all the proposals, and we will see what the best proposal is.
Okay.
And I've been saying that from the beginning. I like the existing Beitler proposal. One of the other proposals also preserved the building the way it was without anything, I don't think, on the plaza. One of the proposals tore it down and built something completely new there. We will look at all of the proposals, and we will see what makes financial sense, would see what makes sense to the community, and go from there.
I think you're wrong. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I think there are 3 other plans, one of which would tear down City Hall, but I think the other 2 build on the plaza.
I think I'd have to look. Yeah. I think the Urban Systems one did not build on the plaza. I think Bogie did. They tore it down. I think the Urban System one didn't, but I'd have to go back and look. To be honest with you, it's been several months.
Let's talk on a more positive note.
Yeah.
Let's talk about preserving the Cooley-Hayes house. We've got Realtor Joe Vitale who's going to come in there with a plan. It's nice to see it preserved. The city council's approved this now. So congratulations on that. It does make me wonder, though, and so now the city has disposed of the Cooley house. The city will soon dispose of the Cooley-Hayes house. That leaves Turner Dodge. Are you committed to continuing Turner Dodge as a city property?
We have not had any discussions about doing anything with Turner Dodge. I love that house. They have a very strong friends group that helps out with improvements. That property does need some improvements, but they have a very strong friends group. And as long as that will continue, then we have not had any conversations about the Turner Dodge house. The Cooley-Hayes house, the conversation started when the Women's Historical Museum left and there was no tenant. There was no one there to pay, and it needed significant improvements. there haven't been any conversations about
Because
Turner
the
Dodge.
previous administration did have conversations
we
about
have-
trying to privatize it with the Friends of Turner.
We haven't had any conversations like that. The big conversation about Turner Dodge was the tree.
Yeah.
A big piece of the
Right.
tree fell down, and the
Right.
tree was actually dying. And
Right. It's gonna have to be-
the conversation was, the tree is dying and dead, and we have to take it out. And that was, and that's sad because it's a beautiful
Right.
tree, and it wasn't something we really wanted to do, but it was dangerous. The piece that fell was huge. You probably saw the
Right.
pictures. It took out that pagoda around it. It was huge. So that was disappointing. But no, the house itself, we haven't had any conversations
And
about that.
no plans to build something in the front yard of Turner Dodge to block it.
No.
Okay. Forgive my sarcasm.
It's okay. Like, I am supportive of preservation. The question is the plaza, and what do we do on the plaza? And the answer is I don't know. The funny thing is with the plaza, going underneath it is actually a bigger problem because we have a parking garage underneath it. You can't put anything really heavy on the plaza, so you'd have to actually take it out and go and redo the parking garage, and there's an expense there. So there are a lot of factors there. Am I committed to putting nothing on the plaza? No. Would I like to leave that space visually, how it is, if we can? Yeah, I would like to. But we're gonna navigate my likes versus many millions of dollars. So we'll see what's economically makes sense versus what I really want to do at the end of the day. So
let's go back to Michigan Avenue.
Yeah.
Obviously it's great news that this Gillespie project with Meyer involved is going to happen across the street in a block that's only going to become more important.
Yes.
Have the city mission. Is anybody, efforts I know have been made in the past, any talk about trying to convince them to move to another central location, and where could that be?
Not yet. And I think I read something in the city polls. That is a deed restricted property. I mean, they own that.
Right.
Not yet. Not yet. They've been there for a very long time, and it's a service that they provide to those that of need. Do I think it's? I think that we have to continue to provide that service, and I appreciate the mission providing that service to those in need. There will come a time when there could be issues. So we'll see. No, I haven't had any conversations with them at this point about relocating. If we were to do that, we really would have to identify the right place and an efficient place.
Yeah, they really need to be central.
Right. I mean, they need to be.
It's going to be an increasing problem for.
They need to be. They need to be on a bus line. They need to be accessible. So I think we need to have a bigger conversation about the need. We put millions and millions of dollars into homeless resources, into resources for those who can't get a meal. We put a lot of resources into that, and we want to have some of that conversation as well. We want to look at we can have a conversation with the mission, the old facility. I cannot remember his name. The gentleman that passed away, I believe his wife is now taking on the facility, where they allow folks who have alcoholism and other problems to come in and get a meal and get shelter. One of our big issues with shelter right now is we cannot take people who you can't drink in a shelter. We have folks who have committed crimes and things like that can't be in the shelter, so now they're homeless. We're still trying just to serve them and get them into shelters, but so we're navigating some of that. Again, we have to look at that as a complete problem. We have people at Rudder Park across from the library, and we have homeless services there, but then we have others that want to use the park, but because of the homeless services. So we want to have conversations with some of the folks that have the services there and figure out, is there a more effective way to do this? So we want to have kind of a bigger conversation about that, but I don't want to reduce the services that we provide to those of need and those that are homeless. So we're talking about that and figure out if there's a way to have a bigger conversation, but we haven't had any conversations with the folks at the mission about moving. It's just not something that we're looking at yet.
All right, and on the other end of Michigan Avenue, how are things going with the Red Cedar Renaissance plan?
They're working on a brownfield plan, and we are waiting on that brownfield plan. So there's a November deadline. It may extend until next year as they work on their brownfield plan. So the council approved the development agreement. We know what it's supposed to look like. We're just waiting on the brownfield plan as per the development agreement.
Excuse me, this will be our last meeting before the general election.
Yeah.
So I wanted to turn a little bit to politics. We've seen nationally, we've seen the Republicans get a bump from the Kavanaugh hearings. Any concern about how that could affect Democrats in Michigan?
The Kavanaugh hearings?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I think the Senate, personally, I think they rushed it. You know, I think there were serious allegations that needed to be evaluated, and I think they rushed it. But, you know, having been in the legislature, when you having been in the minority in the legislature, when the majority has the votes, they go.
Right. I guess what I'm getting at, though, is this, you know, the Republicans seem to have gotten energized because of it. Is that, do you see that?
They may have energized. I think they probably have energized their base. You know, the court is going to turn conservative. You know, there are concerns about, you know, Roe v. Wade. Is that going to be overturned? The court will now be a very conservative court for a generation. And I do think that has energized the Republican base. I also think it's energized the Democratic base. The Democratic base sees what's going to happen and knows the importance of the court. So I think it'll energize both bases, while at the same time, I think it turned off a lot of independents that see some of the kind of these Me Too concerns that really look like they were swept under the rug. So I think it will energize the Republican base, it will energize the Democratic base, and I think the independents will push more towards the Democratic side. But
so did you see a blue wave in Michigan?
I don't know about wave. I think Democrats will do better this year than they have in the last few cycles. Traditionally, Republicans do better in a gubernatorial year, but now you've got, you know, a fairly unpopular Republican president and a very right-wing majority, and I think that could come back to hurt the Republicans. I think there will be Democratic gains, whether it'll be a wave or not. I don't know. I'm not involved anymore. I'm not seeing the polling numbers. My Democratic friends say that, you know, there's going to be a wave. They're going to take majority. My Republican friends say Democrats are going to pick up some seats, but they're going to hold majority. So I don't know.
All right. Well, I think it's time for us to get on our scooters and get back to work.
Right.
Andy, thanks very much for doing this once again. I want to thank Message Makers for making this possible for City Pulse. I'm Berl Schwartz.